What's up, guys? Nate here. We're back again with another Disney Lorcana video. And you notice I make some Lorcana videos here and there. I'm actually a owner of one of the collector sets that came out last year, which I told you guys all about. But we have some new news with the gameplay. This is what people have been waiting for. And this is actually a picture of a magazine called GTM. I think it's Game Trade Magazine. This is, as you can see by the bottom here, the May 2023 issue. So a lot of people got their hands on this. I think we saw the first images yesterday. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. I have not read this yet, so I just wanted to hop in here, make a video, and give you guys my first impression, kind of read through it all, and figure out how this game is played. So let's jump right in. All right, so I just went ahead and hid my webcam because there's a lot going on. The image quality on these pictures isn't the best. Hopefully you guys can read them a little bit, and I'll zoom in. So we'll just kind of go left to right here. Starting with Disney Lorcana TCG, Quick Start Rules. As a Illumineer in the wondrous realm of Lorcana, you'll wield magical ink to summon new versions of Disney characters and items, which are called glimmers. So I'm going to translate a lot of this to Magic the Gathering. If you guys aren't familiar with that, then just kind of ignore me. As far as my background outside of Pokemon, I've played Magic for over 10 years now, probably going on 15. And one of the main designers for Lorcana was a designer for one of the TCG sets. I think it was a core set in 2011. A time when Magic was, in the glory days, in my opinion. Those were some great days, some great sets came out. And yeah, let's go ahead and continue reading, and I'll try to translate some of this into MTG or Pokemon rules. So as you're basically like a spellcaster in Magic, and everything you play, every monster you play, every card is like a spell. So this has this kind of the same theme. You're an Illumineer and you summon things with your ink, and they're called glimmers instead of, spells really. So it's just like putting a Pokemon on your bench and all that. So these glimmers, some familiar, some fantastic, will help you as you race across Lorcana to find and collect missing pieces of lore. Endless quests await. So what kind of game is this? Disney Lorcana is a strategy card game where each player makes their own deck before the game starts. Decks aren't mixed together. You can play with one of the available ready-to-play decks. They're going to have some starter decks, obviously. Make changes to one of those decks or build your deck that is entirely your own. In a game like this, cards allow you to do things that aren't normally a part of every turn. If card's text ever contradicts the game rules, follow what the card says. So there are kind of loose boundaries between the cards and the rules already. So there's definitely a lot of manipulation of things in here, kind of like Magic. So you'll have different card types. Looks like we have characters, items, and actions. So you'll send character glimmers on quest and into challenges. Some have special abilities. It shows off the character. We're already familiar with this Cruella de Vil card. This is a new one, Dingle Hopper. Looks like it is a item card. They stay in play when you play them and give you special abilities. So it has straightened hair. It's hard to tell with the graininess of the picture, but it looks like that is like I think they're calling it Exalt when you kind of rotate the card. And it's also like Magic's tapping, if you will. So you can tap it or turn the card to show that you can't use it anymore this turn to remove up to 1 damage from a chosen character, one of these guys. And then these are like kind of, you do the action, banish chosen character. So I think banish is sending them to a graveyard. So Dragonfire will essentially like kill Cruella de Vil because, it just says banish chosen character and bam. But if you look on here, Cruella de Vil has an ability. You'll be sorry when this character is challenged and banished. You may return chosen character to their player's hand. So that's where the rules kind of get weird. If you're familiar with Magic, you're very familiar with this. So This is just banishing a character. So Cruella de Vil's ability, I do not think that will activate with this card because it says challenged and banished. So she has to be challenged and then banished. So that's where that and is really key. So if it said challenged or banished, this card would be even better and Dragonfire would work. So that's kind of what you have to look at when you're looking at these card games. Looks like songs are another type of action, and you can play one just like any other action by paying its cost and resolving its effect. But that's not your only option. Some characters can sing the song for you, so you don't have to pay the ink. So looks like one jump ahead. A character with a cost of 2 or more can tap or exalt itself to sing this song for 5. I'm not sure what that. Oh, for free. Oh, so you can tap a card to sing this song for free, and by doing that, put the top card put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted. So I'm not quite sure what that means. Sorry, it's kind of hard to read these with the text. But yeah, let's continue on, see what we have here. Game overview. In this game, you'll race to locate pieces of lore scattered across Lorcana and collect them for safekeeping. Summon glimmers and Disney characters and items along the way to help with quests, hinder your opponents, and challenge opposing characters. With the right strategy and a bit of luck, you can preserve your collected lore against future threats. Here's a little QR code if you guys want to scan that. Hopefully it'll work for you there. But yeah, you can check that out. Winning, your goal is to be the first player to gain 20 or more lore. So it's really interesting. They took Magic's life total of 20, where you count it down, and in Lorcana, they're like counting up for it. So it's really, really cool how they do this. So you can tell there's definitely aspects of Magic in there. Some card abilities will give you lore, but the most common way to gain it is playing characters and sending them on quests. So it really breaks down the parts of the cards here. Looks like questing, as they mentioned there, is going to be a way to collect lore without really fighting. So we'll see more about that. But this is how much ink it costs to play. So 4 ink. I'm not exactly sure what the ink are, but cards with that little round symbol around them can be put into your inkwell to use as ink. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you can put this in your inkwell and you get 4 ink. So I'm not sure. Maybe your inkwell is like a bench in Pokemon. So maybe we'll figure that out here pretty soon. You also have a name and a version listed here below. Classification category, sometimes referenced in card rules, such as broom in this example. Let's see. This is the type of ink. This symbol and the colored band behind the card indicate this card's ink type. So that's purple, which you know over here is amethyst ink. This card's special rules is pretty much located down here, pretty much like any TCG. On actions, these are called effects. On characters and items, most abilities have story-based names, especially common abilities. Instead, we use bolded keywords like rush in the example below. So rush, this character can challenge the turn they're played. So that tells you there's going to be some form of summoning sickness. When you play a card, they cannot use an action that same turn they're played. So that is definitely going to be a thing. Here are more types of a card. Looks like we have an ink key, all 6 types here. So instead of 5 in Magic, we have 6. There are more in Magic. There is like colorless. So maybe their steel is how they're kind of going about that. But yeah, it's really interesting here. The only color they don't really have, I guess, is black, which is kind of taking the place of amethyst. So that pretty much aligns very well with the Magic the Gathering sets. But yeah, here's your strength and your willpower, how much damage a character deals during a challenge. Willpower, how much damage it takes to banish a character from play. So Mickey here can attack with 3. It takes 4 damage to banish him to the graveyard. And right here we have lore value, how much lore you gain when the character quests. So that's what we need to figure out. We need to figure out what the quest is all about. Here is the rarity key. Very cool how they do that. Super rare, all the way down to common. So you get rare as like bronze. On uncommon as white. So it's almost kind of a weird setup. It kind of goes from gray, white to brown to silver, which I assume silver is the super rare and lower than legendary. So that's kind of weird to see, because yeah, it looks like Cruella de Vil is a rare, but Mickey is a super rare. So I think that's how they have it lined up. So bronze, silver, and gold in that order. The collector's set actually has its own D23 logo. Let me actually take a look at that real quick. Yeah, it's got D23 Expo and then like a little first edition symbol down there. So totally different symbols for sure. But yeah, here, let's go ahead and check out the setup. We have one more handout to look. I'm going to try to speed things up a little bit here, because at this point, we're just kind of reading along. So yeah, you need your own deck. Shuffle your deck. Set your lore tracker to 0. Draw 7 cards for your starting hand. You can look at the cards in your hand, but not anyone else's hand. After your starting hand, alter your starting hand if you choose. So you skip this step in your first game. So that's kind of like a mulligan type system, it looks like. And then determine the first player by flipping a coin, rolling a dice, or so on. So before the game begins, you can alter your hand down here. Each player can alter their starting hand 1 time, beginning with the first player. Let's see. To do this, put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck without revealing them. Then draw until your hand has 7 cards again. Finally, reshuffle your deck. So you can mulligan any number of cards and go up to 7 once again. So it's a cool system there. So in Magic, you can mulligan and then draw more cards. This is kind of a little different system. So you put them on the bottom so you ensure that you do not draw them again. And then you draw up to 7 cards again. So you have a little more say in what you draw by guaranteeing you not draw those discarded ones again. And then you reshuffle your deck after. So that's kind of nice there. But that's pretty much it for this handout. That one tells us essentially, what's going on. But here's another one. Maybe I'll pop my webcam back in for this one. All right, I know, lots of reading, but yeah, let's just power through it here. So a turn is divided into 2 parts. Each player takes their whole turn for passage to the next player. Okay, so here are the phases. This is the main phases here. Looks like there's only the 2 phases. They said 2 parts, so really more simplistic than Magic. So yeah. Ready your exerted cards by turning them upright. So that's just like tapping in Magic. Every time it's the start of your turn, you can tap them back, which you can see right here. Basically, when you use an ability or attack with something in Magic, sometimes when you use an ability, but every time you attack in Magic, you tap them or you exert them to show that they've done their action. They can't do anything else. So with that, they can't like block or anything when they do that. So maybe there's some mechanic in here as well. So yeah, you set all your stuff up. You check for effects that happen at the start of your turn, and then you draw. So that, pretty standard, pretty similar to Magic. So once per turn, you can put a card face down into your inkwell at any time. So I want to know where the inkwell is set up. It sounds like it's a bench or something. Additionally, you can take any actions listed below any number of times in any order you want. This allows you to take full advantage of what your cards can do in combination with other effects. So you can play a card, you can use a character ability that doesn't require them to exert. So you can do that. You can use an item ability, take an action with a character that has been in play since the start of your turn. So this once again goes with, you can't do something as soon as you play it, but if you start your turn with them played, like you played them in the last round or previous rounds, you can do stuff. So you can quest, you can challenge an opponent's exerted character, or use an ability that requires them to exert. So it's essentially summoning sickness and magic, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting here though. Challenge an opposing characters, or an opponent's exerted character. So it makes you think like you can only challenge if they've been exerted. So if they tap and like they do stuff, then you can attack them. So that's kind of interesting there. But let's go ahead and move into the inkwell. Your inkwell is where you'll put your ink cards face down. You'll use the cards in your inkwell to pay the cost of cards you play from your hand. You may put a card from your hand into the inkwell once each turn. The card you choose must have an inkwell icon around its cost in the upper left corner. So the more ink cards you have, the more you'll be able to do. So it's kind of like mana. So that's really interesting. I thought they were going to do like a mana or like an energy type system like Magic or Pokemon, but it seems like you actually use cards that you play. So like that Mickey that we saw earlier, you can use him to play other cards. So it's kind of weird. Every card has a little cost you can play. So to put a card in your inkwell, show the card to your opponents and then put it face down in your inkwell as ink. Every card in your inkwell represents one, no matter what's on the front. Okay, so that was an issue I had. Like if you had a card that said 4 and you put it down, like you just have to mentally remember that that's 4. So it looks like it doesn't matter. If you put it in your inkwell, it's 1. So essentially you're discarding cards to have mana available. So hopefully that just stays and builds up each turn. So let's see. Cards put in your inkwell stay there for the rest of the game. Once you put a card in your inkwell, nothing on the front matters, excluding its cost and ink type. It's simply ink, so you can use that to play whatever you want. So that's kind of nice. So it's essentially mana ramping. Every turn, you want to put a card in your inkwell to build up more ink to use over time in future turns. If you perhaps have a really good card you don't want to put in your inkwell and you want to play it, you might have an upper hand early in the game, but your opponent, will kind of gain traction because they're going to be ahead of the game by having more ink. So it's a really fine balance there, kind of like Magic. If a card has, if a card ability has a cost that appears before, okay, so here's like using the abilities. So if it's essentially, pretty easy to understand. So you can just do what the card says. If a card ability has a cost that appears before the effect with the two separated by a dash, the cost might include an exert cost, so you might have to exert it. You might have an ink cost, so you might have to use ink. The text that explains the cost or combination of any of these, you must pay every part of ability cost in order to play the ability. A character with a particular ability can't be granted that ability again. So that's cool. You can't use the same thing more than once on a same character. Remember, you can't use the abilities of a character you played this turn. So, yep, you can't use the ability twice on a different guy either in the same turn. So here's an example. Beast Mirror. Beast Mirror has the ability Show Me, which reads tap and 3 ink. So you have to exert it and use 3 ink. If you have no cards in your hand, draw a card. So on your turn, you may play this ability by exerting the card and paying 3 ink by exerting 3 cards in your inkwell. So your inkwell face down cards looks like you exert them too. Because the mirror is an item, you can even play its ability the same turn you played the card. So anything, only characters have the summoning sickness or whatever it is. So that's pretty cool. So ending the game, the first player to reach 20 lore or more wins. If your deck runs out of cards, you lose the next time you would have to draw. So yeah, pretty much the only thing we need to know is about this questing, which is up here. So this is kind of playing the card. I'm pretty much not going to go into this because that's pretty simple. Looks like you just play them. You play cards above your inkwell. Unlike characters, you can use items right away. So yeah, you put everything above your inkwell. It's just like Magic setup with the mana, and it's just like Pokemon setup with the bench. Inkwell below, playable area up top, and that's pretty good setup. I guess you pretty much have to do it that way. It'd be weird if you didn't. But yeah, this is also interesting. Lorcana is a fun 2-player game, but there's nothing stopping you from playing games of 3 or more players. The game rules remain the same, except at the end of the player's turn, just goes on to the next, so you can play multiplayer pretty easily, it looks like. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into questing. This is going to be the main part here. So you win by questing, it seems like. All right, to quest with one of your characters, exert them and gain lore equal to their lore value. Remember, you can't quest with a character the same turn you play them. Okay, so you just exert them and then you automatically get that lore. Okay, so that's interesting. So back what we said before, where you can only attack exerted characters, that makes a lot more sense because you want to be exerting characters even if you're not challenging. So you could win a game just by not even battling each other. So that's really interesting. You can, you can almost play this game solo, I feel like, just by trying to see how quick you can get to 20 lore or something like that. You don't really even have to do combat. So that's kind of nice. So yeah, really, really interesting here. It's definitely unique in its own way. You can't challenge a ready character. Both characters in a challenge deal damage. Look at each other's strength and put that many damage counters on the other character. So kind of just like Magic there. So yeah, that's really interesting, the questing mechanic. Characters damage each other in challenges. Some card effects deal damage as well. Whatever the source, damage counters stay on a character until an effect removes them or the character is banished. So they stay on just like Pokemon. So this is where it's a lot more like Pokemon than Magic. So the damage counters stay on the cards. So that's cool. But otherwise, I mean, it's talking about some extra stuff here. And here's the beginning phase and all that. But yeah, here's an interesting. So it kind of tells you, what's going on here. So this two damage to his 4 willpower does not kill him, but he gets 2 damage counters. His 3 to Donald Duck's 3 will kill him, so he is banished to the graveyard. So that's all that kind of breaks down. But wow, guys, I'm actually really impressed and kind of like really excited to play this game. I mean, this is awesome. This video went on a little longer than I expected, but it's a lot to break down. That pretty much tells you exactly how to play. And yeah, man, it's exciting. It's exciting. I even have beside me here my Lorcana cards. So if you guys want to see these, let me know. I need to do a video. I graded an entire set when they came out, and a lot of them got 10s. And before, they trickled down a little bit, but now I think we're seeing a lot more movement. I did sell before they kind of trickled down. I sold all my 10s and got 9s. So I actually have a full 9 set right here. Maybe I'll do a video on those soon, just showing them all together, because I have an interesting story about my Captain Hook coming up damaged, the PSA case. So yeah, maybe I'll tell that story in that video. But thank you all for watching, guys. Are you excited for Lorcana? Maybe I'll do more Lorcana themed stuff on here. And yeah, we'll see you next one, guys. Peace.